Hello, everybody. Welcome and thank you for inviting me to talk to you today. My name's Elizabeth Cheshire and I'm the daughter of Leonard Cheshire and Sue Ryder. And it's a tremendous privilege to be able to join you at your conference. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you. I think the first thing to say is that I hope you won't be seeing this video. And the reason I say that is because I'm hoping to join you live on Zoom. I'm very much looking forward to seeing all of you and to hearing what's been happening since the last conference. So I hope you won't be seeing this video, because if you are, it means I haven't been able to join you due to IT problems. So I'm just recording a very short message just in case I can't join you, because I would like you to know how much the conference means to me. And how much it would have meant to Mum and Dad. So I wanted at the very least to send you my best wishes for the success of the conference and to say what a pleasure it is to address you. When Diane and Rory first asked me to talk to you, they gave me a list of things that they would like me to talk about. So I'll do my best to say a little bit about most of the things on that list. But the first thing I'd like to say is that Mum and Dad had the most tremendous affection and regard for their friends in Australia and New Zealand, and were tremendously proud of everything that you have done, and particularly your association with Raphael, which was started by them in the 1950s and was one of their first joint ventures. And it had a very special place in their heart. So thank you for everything that you have done to support Raphael, and for everything Raphael has done. And I know that they would have been equally proud of everything you've done since those days. But I just wanted to make a special mention of Raphael because it did mean so much to them in the early days of their marriage, and in the years afterwards. So thank you for that. I was asked to give a brief update on some of the other charities that Mum and Dad started. And I think really the main theme of what Diane and Rory asked me to talk about is to try to bring together the families, or the family of charities that Mum and Dad started. I can't mention all of them, but just to mention some of them, and starting with the Sue Ryder Homes, as they were once called, now known as Sue Ryder Care. And that was the first charity that Mum started in the 1950s. And it was born out of her experiences in the war, and also her experiences in post-war Europe, and in particular when she saw the liberation of the Nazi concentration camps and realised that so many of the people there had lost all of their families and their homes and had nowhere to go after the war. So she brought many of them home to live in what was her mother's home in Suffolk. And that's the home where my brother Jeremy and me were born and brought up. And we were brought up with the survivors of Nazi concentration camps, which really was the most tremendous privilege. And we had a very happy childhood, an unusual one, but a very happy one. And it really was a tremendous privilege to see those people who had just been through so much in the war, and to grow up surrounded by them and part of their family. So that really was an amazing childhood that we had. So originally the Sue Ryder Homes were for survivors of Nazi concentration camps, and then it expanded to take in pretty much anyone who had nowhere else to go, and is now concentrating on providing hospice care, both in hospices and end-of-life care at home, on bereavement support, and on looking after people with neurological disabilities such as Huntington's chorea or Parkinson's disease. So that's the main focus currently of the Sue Ryder Care charity. And anyone who's been to England will probably know about Sue Ryder shops, which are one of the main sources of income for the charity. And I think probably the most well-known part of the charity, certainly in England, are the Sue Ryder shops. And there are currently over 400 of those shops here, and they have goods donated to them by members of the public. Sometimes the most incredibly generous things are given to them, and then they're distributed to the shops where they are most likely to achieve their value. And members of the public can come and buy things, and it really is a tremendous source of income for the charity. And I think it was probably one of the first charitable shops as well. There are now other charities who have shops, as I'm sure there are where you are, but the Sue Ryder shops were some of the first in the country. So I think Mum was pretty pioneering with her Sue Ryder shops, and they are still going today. The other charity I wanted to mention briefly is the Leonard-Cheshire Disability Charity, originally known as Cheshire Homes. And this was a charity started by Dad shortly after the war. Again, born out of his experiences in the war, which are very different from my mother's experience. But Dad was very struck by the sense of pulling together and what could be achieved in the war when everybody pulled together with a common aim, like they did in the war effort. And he was very keen to try to harness that after the war. And he felt that if he could start communities that had a common aim, then a lot of good could be achieved. So he started an ex-servicemen's commune after the war. In fact, where I'm speaking to you from here in Hampshire. That wasn't, unfortunately, a success. And while he was trying to sell the property, which was a very big house in Hampshire, to pay off the debts of the venture that wasn't a success, he had a phone call from the local hospital who said that somebody called Arthur Dykes was dying of cancer, and they needed his bed, and Arthur Dykes had nowhere else to go. So they asked Dad if he would take Arthur in and look after him until he died, which Dad did, thinking that was going to be a one-off, and then he would carry on with the rest of his life doing something that, well, certainly Cheshire Homes wasn't in the plan. But other people kept coming and had nowhere else to go, and Dad took them all in. And that's how Cheshire Homes grew. So it was never Dad's big idea to start a charity. He really just responded to a need, and to one man in particular, and it grew from there. And Cheshire Homes now is focusing on social care in the United Kingdom, employment support for people with disabilities, and is playing quite a pioneering role in assistive technology to help disabled people lead the most independent lives that they can. So those currently are their main focuses. They have had quite a challenging time financially over the last few years, not helped at all by COVID. And so they have had to rationalise and to focus on some core areas, and those are the core areas that they're focusing on at the moment. But I'm assured that their turnaround is going well, and I'd be very happy in future to update you when their focuses change and expand again, which I'm sure they will. Diane did ask me specifically about the archives at Netherseal, which is a village in the north of England, which I visited last year. And the archives are being preserved. They don't at the moment have an archivist. They had a brilliant archivist called Steph. But as part of the financial turnaround, the archivist is no longer working there. But the archives are being preserved and will be preserved for the future. So they're not accepting new material at the moment, but I'm sure they will be in the future. And in the meantime, everything is being kept safe. And Diane did also ask about the Compass magazine. That's not being published at the moment either, but there is lots of information about Cheshire Homes as it was. Leonard-Cheshire Disabilities, it now is online if anyone would like more information. One of the other charities is something called the Sue Ryder Prayer Fellowship, and that is a charity that was started in 1984 by Mum, and the main purpose of that charity was to be a powerhouse of prayer for the work of the charity, and really it acknowledged that everything that Mum did was based on her faith and on prayer. And in 1998, they received an incredibly generous gift of a beautiful house at Parmore in Oxfordshire. It was an Anglican convent, and when the last nun left, they gave it to Mum, and it became the centre of the prayer fellowship and also a physical retreat centre. And it is a very large, very beautiful house which can accommodate groups of up to 36. And it's very well used and busy pretty much all year. And people of all faiths and no faith can go there for retreats. And they have spring retreats and autumn retreats and other retreats in between. They've just had the spring one. They say that they pray for the many needs of the world, but they pray especially for Sir Ryder work wherever it is in the world. And the Reverend Robert Clifton, who is chairman of the Prayer Fellowship, has said he would very much welcome any contact from anyone down under. So if you would like to get in touch with them, I'd be very happy to pass on his details to you. I know he would very much like to be in contact with you. And some of you may have met him at the Zoom meeting that we had in February. The other charity that I would like to briefly mention is the Lady Ryder of Walsall Memorial Trust. And that's a charity that was started by Mum pretty much in the last year of her life. And she founded it specifically to continue the work and those projects which were closest to her heart. And at the time, she was particularly keen to carry on providing support to Poland and to Italy. And more recently, the Memorial Trust has started providing sponsorship for medical students, specifically those from poorer backgrounds who might otherwise either not be able to go to medical school or wouldn't be able to complete their studies. And the medical scholarships are something that the chairman, Robert Frith, is particularly proud of. And at the moment, they're sponsoring 2 students a year at 2 different medical schools, most recently Bristol University. And one of the first medical students they sponsored has recently qualified as a doctor. And I know went on to comment to Raphael. So Priyo may have more to say about the medical student. But I know, or doctor as she now is, and I know she found it doctor found it a tremendously enriching experience and has been very grateful for the sponsorship she received, without which I don't think she would have been able to finish medical school. And I think Robert Frith is particularly proud of it because it means that people who come from deprived backgrounds can qualify and reach their full potential, and I think also will be particularly sympathetic and understanding of the problems faced by many of their patients. So I think the medical scholarships are a tremendous thing for the charity to be doing, and it would be lovely if they had a greater association with Sir Ryder charities and Leonard-Cheshire charities in other parts of the world, and were able perhaps to travel to them and to help in them in years to come. So that's probably a little bit more than 10 minutes, but it's been lovely to have the opportunity to join you in your conference and to give you just a little bit of information about some of the other charities, and I hope to strengthen bonds between you and them. So thank you. And once again, I would just like to pass on the best wishes of the trustees and the chairpeople of the charities that I've mentioned, because I know that they are hoping very much your conference will be a huge success, and they're very pleased to have the opportunity to be associated with you in this way. So thank you very much.